Being a Muslim Indian woman from Miami, I was very unsure when I first walked into MSPP. With a predominantly white student population, I was kind of unsure about not necessarily being accepted here, but just how I would personally feel. But I was pleasantly surprised. MSPP has done a really great job of not only making me feel welcomed and comfortable in my own skin, but also doing its own part in teaching others and the other students and staff about Islam. A couple months ago they held an Eid luncheon, which is one of the biggest holidays for a Muslim, and so it was really nice to see that incorporated in the student life. More and more students kind of came up to me and wanted to learn about Islam, and so did the staff. Which was nice, because I'm always open to sharing about my religion and my faith, the more people ask, the more I feel almost like, comfortable with myself here. And I think that MSPP has done a really great job. And I think a big part of that is the fact that we're not, it's not, like administrative and students or staff and students, but we're a community, we're all colleagues, as much as I have taken from my professors, I think I have given just as much. I think it's a two-way street here. The good part about MSPP is that, I take as much as I give here, and I think that goes in saying for all students and all staff. We're a bunch of colleagues together. We work together, and I learn so much from them, but I think I also teach so much. I work at a vocational high school in Lexington, and I work with special needs kids. And, they're the type of clientele that is very difficult to work with, but at the same time, they completely capture your heart, and every day is very rewarding. And, when you hear about students that are graduating and finding a job, it makes it all worthwhile, all the ups and downs. It makes it really, really worth, all the effort and all the time that you spent there. I do individual therapy, I do group therapy with young adolescent females, which is always a challenge, but I have learned so much, not only about myself, but things and in terms of relationships with other people. I've learned patience, and I've learned sort of the value of what I have, what I've been fortunate enough to be given. The whole, when talking about culture and diversity, it always comes back to how it plays in the role of a counselor. And I think MSPP has really done a good job in teaching me how to be aware of, the differences in culture, diversity, looks, everything. Because I think it plays a huge role in how not only counselors think, but how the client thinks. And I think that, the biggest part of the whole thing is to be open and non-judgmental. And MSPP actually does a really good job of teaching you how to do that. They've definitely done their job in terms of this. We have to learn to be open. We have to learn to be non-judgmental, because, how are you supposed to help a client if you've already made a judgment before they say two words? And I think that with the courses we've taken and with my own personal cultural and diverse differences, it's definitely taught me to be much more aware of other people's differences, and also not to be afraid to ask clients, what they feel about a certain thing or what their religious background is, because I think the more knowledge we have, the better we can help our clients. And when I think of what a counselor is, I define counselor as a helper. I don't think we're problem solvers. I don't think we're fixers. I think sometimes more than anything, you just need a listening ear. With the special needs kids that I work with, a lot of times they don't expect you to fix their problems. They just, sometimes they're having a hard day and say, here, I'm having a problem, listen to me. Which I think is really great, because at the end of the day, I think I've realized what just a listening ear, the great impact that has on a population, especially with students with cognitive delays, and I think that it's been not only a growing experience of me being a counselor, but in terms of like, you know, relationships with other people. You know, I've learned to be like patient and just, you know, value what I have, and I think that's what a counselor is.